Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Outliers YouTube channel and our program Get to Know. I'm your host, DP Lyle, and I'm here with John
Oh, my
Robb.
co-host John Robb. How you doing?
There you go. And we have a great guest today, a gentleman that I have known for a while and have worked on a lot of TV shows with him over the years, Matt Witten. Matt, welcome.
Hi, Doug. It's so great to see you again. And it's true, we go back a long way for sure.
A long way. Yeah. It's all Lee Goldberg's fault, I think, but yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I remember working for Law and Order back in the day. It must be 20, 25 years ago. And I'd call you up for forensic advice all the time.
Exactly,
Kept
exactly.
going when I was on other
And I
shows.
think House and
Yeah,
the Glades and Pretty Little Liars, a lot of little stuff
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
absolutely. Call you with all kinds of crazy questions about murder.
So with the Glades, whose idea was it to have a forensic nurse?
No, actually, I think
Yeah.
that might have been my idea now that I think
Okay, the
about
forensic
it.
nurse. Okay, because that was a totally brand new concept when I watched the Glades. I loved it. I loved the character. I thought
Yeah.
he was great. And then I'm like, never heard of a forensic nurse. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there might have been a TV show. Either I read a pilot or saw a pilot on TV about a forensic nurse. But yeah, at the time, I agree. I had never heard of it before, but I think I read about it in some article, or maybe Doug told me about
Yeah.
it.
That
But
was one of those.
it's a growing field. There are a lot more out there now that are doing this stuff, and they of course work with the forensic team, the lab, and the medical examiner or coroner. And yeah, it's a viable growing field.
You're groundbreaking. You invented a brand new occupation.
Absolutely. I mean, just to put in a plug for another podcast, I listened to a podcast called Criminal a couple weeks ago, and they had a segment about the origin of the rape kit. And that has certainly been something that forensic nurses have worked on a lot over the last
Sure,
20 years. Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
That's been around for a while, and I remember even back in training doing those exams, when you were an intern and a resident and all that. Yeah, it's
Right.
traumatic situations. Yeah.
Yeah, apparently back in the 70s, I guess, they didn't
Yep.
used to have them. And then a woman in Chicago just took it upon herself. She said, "This is crazy what's happening to women. It's just insane
Mhm.
that they're not getting that kind of support and getting that kind of prosecution of the rapists." And so there was a guy, an ME in Chicago, who she convinced to get this going, and it spread over the country till now
Yeah.
now it's everywhere. Now the only issue, as you know, is a
Yeah.
lot of these rape kits are there and not getting checked. So there are a lot of
Yeah.
them sitting in the labs, not even being checked. But anyway,
Yeah. There's countless thousands of them stacked up everywhere.
What do you mean?
right.
It's not CSI? They can't just figure it out with a
They
push of
can't,
a button?
they can't
What
do it in a
the
couple of
hell?
minutes. No, they
TV's
can't
lying
do it.
to me again.
They can't do it. So, you actually started writing plays and stuff like that at a very early age. Tell us about how that happened and how you ended up in this whole writing business in the first place.
God, how did it happen? Well, I started writing poems when I was 6 years old, 5 years old, and I would write poems about how the Baltimore Orioles were going to defeat the hated Yankees. And I I decided I wanted to become a writer, but I think I decided I didn't have enough life experience, so I didn't really start writing till I was in 10th grade. And then I had a crush on my 10th grade drama teacher. She suggested that I write a play, so I did, and it was performed for the women's group at the local Methodist church.
Wow.
And that was very exciting. And seeing their reaction and getting $10 for the performance,
Whoa.
made me a writer forever. When I was 18 years old, I had a undiagnosed illness, and I decided if it ever got better, God willing, that I'd stick to what was the core of my being, I felt, which was being a writer. And so I did get better after about 2 or 3 months, and then for the past many years since I was 18, I've stuck with being a writer, even during hard times, financially and so on. And I've stuck with that dream and been lucky. Uh, the rest of the story, I don't know. I started out as a playwright. I was super into that. Then at a certain point in my 30s, I said, you know what? My favorite thing to do for recreation isn't so much, going to see a play. It's to put my feet up and read a murder mystery. And at that time, I was reading a lot of amateur sleuth mysteries, and that's what I wrote. And they got published, so that was very exciting. And then through kind of an odd set of circumstances, just I got the call to come to Hollywood. Some agent had seen one of my plays, and then I met the head writer of Law and Order, and I wrote a freelance episode. And I got a call one day. We were living in upstate New York, a small town, Saratoga Springs. And I got the call one day from the head writer saying, "Oh, we liked your freelance episode. Could you come out to LA and write for the show?" And so we've been in LA now for the last 25 years. Uh,
Wow.
wrote TV for the first 18 of them or 20 of them. And I still write some. Last year I wrote a couple of TV scripts. But mainly now I write novels again. And my favorite thing to write now, to do right now recreationally, is to read thrillers. So that's what I write right now, is I write thrillers. So that's my that's my that's my writing story in a nutshell, in a large nutshell.
So you knew early on what you wanted to do. You just had to get your feet set and decide this is the path I'm going to walk down.
I
Yeah.
guess I'm still
Yeah.
trying to figure out that path to some
Yeah.
extent.
Yeah. What do you find that being a screenwriter, because I know you have to write quickly there, does it help you with your novel writing, either plotting or creating story or?
Yeah, I think so. Because the thing about writing for TV is you can't skim. You know, people aren't going to skim your TV show. So if somebody's watching it, they get bored for a minute, boom, that's it. They're out of there. They switch the channel. Same thing with writing a play, which I've done a lot. If you're sitting in the audience watching, your play, and you can feel the people around you like moving around in their chairs and stuff like that, then man, that's just the worst feeling. So, I think with my novels, I try to do what Elmore Leonard said and skip the boring parts. I really try not to write things that people are going to skim. So I think it made me rigorous, in that sense. Um, and yeah, in general, plotting TV shows, they're very tightly plotted. You gotta, especially if it's a network show, you gotta have it rise to a crescendo at the commercial, and then you
Right.
gotta come back from the commercial and rise again. So yeah, I think of novel writing in terms of that. So I think it's definitely, informed the novel writing.
Yeah. Cool.
Now,
Um,
I got a quick question because I talked to Nick Santoro before, and you might know him. Of course, he's doing Reacher and a lot of other projects, and he decided to get into writing. And he always said, when he was writing TV shows, he could sit there and write a scene where a guy walks into a church, spits into the holy water, and walks out. And the guy never said a word. He goes, it's all done by pictures. He goes, now trying to write that in a book to make that dude that villainous and that ruthless is so difficult. Is that challenged for you too in the same way? Because when you're writing a novel, you can't use a TV camera to set up your scene.
Oh yeah, that rings a bell with me. I would say I would say the thing that I most noticed, which I think is very similar to what you're saying, or maybe even the same as what you're saying, is that I wrote these novels. I wrote novels back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then I switched to TV writing for whatever 15, 20 years, and then I got back into novel writing. And here's what I found. I found that my first draft of the novel, I'd write these scenes, and and like I did it like a TV show or a movie, like all dialogue and not a lot of description. And that's what you do when you're writing a novel. And so the people in my writing group said, we want to be with your character. We want to feel inside your character. We want to know what he's up to. And I was just so not used to that in TV. Like it was almost like a macho thing for me that I'm going to write as few stage directions as possible. And just by what the words that people are saying, you're going to know exactly what they're feeling and exactly what they're thinking. So okay, so then my second draft of the first time writing a novel on this second go round. So the second draft, I I had too much. Like, heart pounded. She threw her hands up in the air and walked around the room. And then she said, whatever she said. It was like too much. And people said it was too much. And it wasn't until the third draft that I got it, bless you. It wasn't just the third draft that I got it just right in that regard. And I then a couple of years ago, I went to see a panel discuss. Well, it was on Zoom, a panel discussion of three writers who had been TV and movie writers who switched to novel writing, and they all had the exact same experience. too little, too much, and just right. So I'd say that's one area where the TV writing, I had to make a change from it. The other real change that I've noticed with TV writing and novel writing is that sometimes, like when you write a novel, you just get so deep into the character and you just really, really go way deep into everything about them, more so than, in my experience, than happens when I write a TV show. Because there's just more and you just do more. And then the great thing about writing a TV show is you really hone in on exactly the way they talk, exactly the way they talk. You're more rigorous than if you're writing a novel because you got to picture an actor is going to be right up there speaking it, and you can't have a loose word or loose sentence. It's got to be something the actor is going to enjoy doing and something they're going to feel is accurate doing, that it's real. So for instance, when I wrote my thriller, The Necklace, I wrote a draft of it as a novel. Then I wrote a draft of it as a screenplay. And writing that draft as a screenplay really helped me find the character's voice better for the novel. And uh, and then writing the second draft of the novel really helped me write the second draft of the screenplay because I knew the characters more deeply, so it really informed the novel, my understanding of the screenplay, my understanding of those characters. So anyway, so that was my experience, with the two forms. I think they're both great and they, complement each other in a great way.
Well, that's interesting. We interviewed our friend Lee Goldberg, and Lee said that basically when he starts a novel, the first thing he does is write the screenplay of it.
Right.
And that's basically his outline. And he said that he might put a few more notes in there about, I'm going to talk about that here. I'm going to do that he would on a real screenplay. But he said because that makes him keep the rhythm and the beats right. And he knows that the story is lean and doing what it's supposed to. And then he can go flesh it out into a novel. Is that kind of what you're talking about? That you do some of that?
Yeah, that is essentially what I did with The Necklace. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked well and it works well for Lee Boy. His novels are just they go straight through
Oh,
and very tight, very well plotted. And yeah, it's a good idea. I'm not
he's
doing
just a
that.
slacker. He doesn't write enough of them.
What's that?
He's just a slacker. He doesn't write enough of them. Good
Oh my
Lord.
God. I don't know about you. I get so ticked off at how many he writes. He puts out two or three a year.
I
Oh my
get dizzy. Yeah. Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing.
Well, you had another one that just came out recently, and why don't you tell us about Killer Story?
Yeah, sure. Killer Story is about a young woman who's a newspaper reporter. And, that's kind of a tough thing to be these days, because they're getting fired all the time. So she's about to get fired again. This is her fourth job she's gotten fired from in the last year and a half, and through no fault of her own. She's a very good reporter, but, it's just they're going down. So she comes up with this great idea to save her job. She's going to do a podcast, a true crime podcast about a woman that she knew who got killed. And she convinces the editor if this podcast is successful, it could help the newspaper. And really, she's doing it, to save her own career. She doesn't want to be, branded a loser, someone who gets fired. It's just such a difficult business. So she investigates this murder. And in the course of investigating the murder, you know, it's a world where for journalists getting clicks can be as important as getting the truth. So she's so eager for clicks, and I would say desperate for clicks, that she starts to do some things that are not quite right. So she comes out from the beginning of the book in a place of, as a kid getting into journalism, like all the young reporters that I know, just really wanting to make a difference, really feeling idealistic about what journalism can do, shedding a light on the world. And then she starts that place of idealism, but she has this concern about herself. She winds up doing some things, and she kind of goes, downhill, and in her morality essentially. And she gets to the point where at the end of the book, she's got to decide, am I going to be able to retrieve my idealism? So I won't. I guess I shouldn't spoil the ending of the
No,
book.
no.
It's about this woman's journey in the course of being a journalist.
Well, speaking of journalists and reporters, I saw you had a blurb on the cover from Hank Felipe Ryan. Speaking of journalists, she's amazing. Yeah, that's
She is
good.
amazing. Yeah, and I enjoy her books too. I read one
Yes.
last month. I forget the title, Hold Me, maybe. But anyway, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, she's a terrific person, and I
Yeah.
really appreciated the Killer Story has gotten a lot of positive reviews from both reporters and also from podcasters, true crime podcasters. And
Cool.
of course, I really appreciate those,
Yeah.
especially.
Now, are you a plotter, or you like just let the story kind of come organically?
Well, I usually start out by writing up the idea in a sentence and then writing it up in a paragraph. And I will pitch that verbally to my wife, Nancy side, and also to the members of my writing group. And I'll just get a sense of whether it seems like a good idea. And then I'll write it up in a page and a half or 2 pages, single spaced. And I'll give it to the same people to look at. And that'll give me a sense of it, if it's a good idea. At some point now, I also give it to my agent to get his seal of approval. And then I write it up as about 7 to 8 pages, single spaced. And I give that to these same people to get their input. And, in the process, I get a sense of what the story is. And so then I start writing the book. So I would say essentially, I know the beginning of the book. If it's a murder mystery, I know who gets killed. I know the end of the book, who the killer is. At least I've known every book but one. I've known one. It turned out I didn't
Right.
know. It changed my mind. Um, and I know some of the things in between. I generally know who the suspects are. But I would say when I'm going along writing a book, I might know like what's going to happen like for the next 5 or 10 pages, but beyond that, I'm not really certain. Um, it works well for me. I think I get, first of all, I get surprised, which is good because the reader gets surprised too. And also, I um like I just sense as I go, I need the guns firing now. Like Raymond Chandler said, if his books get boring, he'll come out with 2 guys with 6 guns blazing, and he says he'll figure out later why they're here.
Right.
And that yeah, that made a lot of sense to me in terms of plotting. And in general, the visualization that I like is Laura Lippman's visualization of writing a distant shore. She knows the ending. She sees that distant shore on the other end of the lake, on the other end of the novel. And I kind of visualize it, that way with my books too. The distant shore.
Interesting. Yeah.
I like that analogy. That's pretty much what I do. Is I may know what's the next 2 or 3 scenes are going to be like, but what happens after that, I'm not really sure. And I've written books where I did not know who the bad guy was yet and how they were going to get caught. I just knew they were going to get caught, and I knew there was going to be a bad guy, but
Right.
I didn't know yet. I was having too much fun writing the scenes and telling the story, and it found its way there. Yeah.
Now you're pretty prolific yourself. I mean, you're kind of amazing. I look at your books. You've got 2 series now, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
I muddle through. It is what it is. It's
Muddle
fun.
through.
Keeps you out of the bars.
That's true. That's true. That's true. I mean, the one thing that always amazed me, because I always kind of ask, is, Agatha Christie, when I figured out how she wrote her books, I mean, she always said, she goes, I would write the whole book and then I go back and figure out who the killer was. And that always just amazed me, because I'm like, those mysteries are so complex, and how her writing was so depth. It's like, I don't know how I mean, I must have been a really bad first draft, and then she went back and said, okay, now I figure out how this is going to happen. But yeah, I mean, every writer's different, and everybody makes a chocolate chip cookie different. But at the end of the day, if that chocolate chip cookie tastes good, who cares how you got there?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
but then people want your recipe, but it's like, but you can't imitate what I'm doing, because it's my love. It's my, you can never really do that. You can kind of get close, but you can't really get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoy hearing other writers' writing processes. Agatha Christie.
Mhm.
I read one the other day from the writer Jess Lowry, and she gave a
Yeah.
real
Mhm.
detailed description about how she writes and how she plots things out. And I read them, and there's always like a part of me that goes for 1 second, oh shoot, that's great. I should do that. And then it's like, no, man, everybody's got their own path, and what
Yeah.
I do is good, and
Exactly.
everything does is good, and yeah, whatever whatever works for you,
Right.
whatever works for you.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to try things out.
Yeah. Elmore Leonard said once that when he wrote Cuba Libre and he sent it to his publisher, and they said, "Oh, great, man, we've been waiting for this. This is great. Murder in Havana." And he stopped and he realized there wasn't a murder in the book. And he said, hold that thought. So he had to go back and get some people killed.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
Oh, that's amazing.
And that's funny. That's funny.
Well, Leonard is a guy, didn't he get into books? He would say he just like saw two people talking or heard two people
Yep.
talking in the room, and then he just take off from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that he told me, I met him at Maui and had a chance to talk to him a couple of times, just one-on-one. Um, and I asked him, I said, your characters, how do you create your characters? I said, do you do like character outlines and that kind of stuff? Because there's such great characters. And I said, I don't do anything like that. I just let them kind of evolve as I'm telling the story. I said, but your characters are so deep. I said, they're all scumbags. They got no social redeeming value, but we love them. And he said, nah, he said, I don't do anything like that. He said, it may take me a couple of weeks or a month. He said, but once I come up with the name, I know the character.
Hmm.
And it's like, wow.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Once you
amazing.
know the name, you know the character. And
Man, I wish I had that, man. I could figure out a name in less than a month. Just put me on Chat GPT. I'll come up with something.
yeah,
yeah, I judge you.
I met Elmore Leonard too once, but I did not have an extended discussion with him. I was in an elevator at some convention, and he got on the elevator, and I was just like this
yeah,
for the entire elevator
exactly.
ride. I didn't open my mouth up to say anything.
Yeah. He's such a gentleman, such a gentleman. He's so smart, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Every
I
writer should read him
in my
voraciously.
Elmore Leonard shelf back
Yep,
there. I still think Swag is like, I tell people I think
yep,
Swag is like the best book of the last 100 years by
hmm,
anybody.
yep,
So,
yeah. So what's next for you?
Yeah, what's going on?
well, I just wrote a thriller set in the WNBA, Women's National Basketball
Yeah.
Association.
Oh,
Oh,
It's called Clutch, and my agent is he's sending it out this week. So not this week, this month. So wish me luck.
oh,
And then
cool.
on the theory that it's going to sell and be incredibly successful, I did something really kind of out there. Uh, I wanted to write book two of this called a series, and I felt it should be set in Lyon. Our hero is going to go to Europe to play in the Euro League, and if you're going to write a book like that, you have to do the research. And the Euro League only the regular season is only through the end of January. So I went to Lyon for a couple of weeks in December,
Mhm.
did my research for book two, and now I've started writing book two without knowledge. I mean, my agent says, "Oh man, Clutch is great," but it hasn't. We haven't put it out there yet. So I'm just going there with the confidence that it's going to sell, and the Eternal Writers Conference, and that
Yes.
confidence and that it will sell well. And I'm starting a book too.
Well, that's
nice.
fantastic.
Yeah, because I knew if I didn't go to Lyon in December, I wouldn't be able to do my research again until the next year when the Euro League starts again. So I
Right.
said, if I'm going to be writing this thing, I can't be writing, from now till December with no research. So anyway, that's what I decided. It was the book I wanted to write, the book I was most excited about. Um, I gave my agent three ideas, but this was really the one I was most excited about. So anyway, that's what's next for me. I'm and staying out of this rain. That's the other
And
thing.
I think there's a good lesson there. Writers always say, I have 4 or 5 ideas and I'm not sure which one to tackle next. And my response was always the one that wakes you up at 2 a.m, because you can
That's
start
true.
something else. And I've done that, start another book, but that one keeps bugging you. And you say, okay, put this aside and go do this, because it's not going to leave you alone until you write the damn book,
Mhm.
and yeah,
Yeah,
sounds
that's
like,
great advice. You got to follow your passion for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
Matt, it's been wonderful. We
Real quick,
appreciate you coming on, and it's been a thrill talking to you. And, obviously, I've followed your career the whole time, beside the fact that we worked together on TV shows, but your novel career, I've loved both your books so far, and I can't wait for your WNBA series,
that should
which
be
it will
fun.
be. And we'll go from there. So
Well,
So
thanks.
thanks.
real quick before you go, where's the best place for everyone to find out about your work, and what social media platform do you like jump on the most? Are you a TikToker, or are you an Instagrammer? Like, where do you go?
I like Instagram the best, and my website is mattwittenwriter.com. So those would be the two best places.
And all the links for your social media, I'm sure, on your website, people can find you through there as your
Oh,
portal.
absolutely. On Facebook and
Yeah.
TikTok
Nice.
and the others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And everybody go down and click the little thumbs up thing on this, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we got a lot more interviews coming.
Oh, yeah.
Matt, once again, until next time, I hope to see you in the conference somewhere soon. Take care.
Okay, you too. Likewise.
Thanks, Matt.
Good to see you.